In 2011, the Syrian War began, leading to the tragic loss of over 600,000 lives. More than 13 million people were displaced, thousands went missing, and tens of thousands of images emerged documenting torture and mass killings. The conflict in Syria quickly escalated from a revolution to a brutal civil war, and then to a proxy war involving the most powerful regional and global players. However, since 2019, the conflict has largely disappeared from international television screens, even as major transformations continued to reshape the ground reality in Syria. The Syrian army regained control over most parts of the country.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead.
ISIS was crushed, Kurdish fighters consolidated power over vast regions in the east, and northern Syria came under the control of factions supported by Turkey. Meanwhile, Idlib became a miniature state ruled by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which launched a significant campaign against the Syrian army, capturing city after city amid the disarray of Assad's regime and military forces. In this discussion, we aim to explore the Syrian war from its onset to the present, identifying the groups involved, those that emerged and disappeared, and those still active today. But first, let's set the stage by understanding the historical and political backdrop of the conflict. In the late 1970s, Hafid al-Assad seized power in Syria, establishing a one-party state dominated by his family. By securing this loyalty of military and intelligence apparatus, his regime maintained a tight grip on the country for 3 decades, despite enduring severe crises. Following his death, his son Bashar al-Assad assumed the presidency. Initially, Bashar enjoyed widespread public support as a Western-educated young leader without a military background, unlike his father. However, it soon became clear that Bashar was a continuation of his father's regime, if not worse. The suppression of freedoms, corruption within the government and military, and dire economic conditions sparked growing discontent among Syrians.
The influence of Islamic radicalism is also magnified by helpers and enablers. They've been sheltered by authoritarian regimes like Syria and Iran.
By 2011, as popular uprisings swept across Tunisia, Egypt, and Libya, similar protests erupted in Syria, beginning in Daraa. The regime's violent crackdown, including live ammunition and arrests, quickly inflamed public anger, escalating protests into major demonstrations in key cities such as Damascus, Hamas, and Hama. Initially, Syrians demanded political reforms and economic relief. But the regime's brutal response shifted the call to outright demands for Bashar al-Assad's removal. This marked a turning point as the regime's military and intelligence forces intervened, leading to mass arrests and killings of protesters. By mid-2011, armed resistance emerged, with defecting army officers forming the Free Syrian Army. What had started as a revolution now transformed into a full-fledged civil war.
بارودي ما بتعمل شيء مقابل الدبابي والمدفع والطيران. يوقف الطيران، يوقف الآليات الثقيلة بعدها عنا، بنوقف احنا. أما ما بيوقف ما بنوقف. بيضرب طلقة بنضرب 10.
With the FSA initially composed of defectors and civilian volunteers. However, the group's lack of a unified command and reliance on Turkish support led to the emergence of other opposition factions, including jihadist groups like Jabhat al-Nusra, backed by Al-Qaeda. The conflict grew increasingly complex. The regime strategically released Islamist prisoners to portray its opposition as extremist, while Iran, an old ally of the Assad regime, stepped in by sending elite officers and later thousands of Hezbollah fighters. Sunni Gulf states countered by funding and arming Sunni opposition groups. escalating the conflict into a sectarian proxy war between Iran and the Gulf nations.
وإذا احتاجت المعركة أن أذهب أنا وكل حزب الله إلى سوريا سنذهب إلى سوريا.
The turning point came in 2014 with the rise of ISIS, which sees large terrorists in Iraq and Syria declaring itself the Islamic State. They introduced a new dimension to the war, as ISIS fought not only the regime but also other opposition factions, including Jabhat al-Nusra. The regime exploited the global focus on combating ISIS to present itself as the lesser evil, resulting in increased military support from Russia, which officially intervened in 2015. By then, the war had spiraled into an arena of geopolitical and sectarian conflict, devastating Syria and leaving millions of civilians to endure unspeakable suffering. Today, the country remains fractured, with various powers and factions holding sway over different territories. While some stability has returned to parts of Syria, the scars of war and its profound human and geopolitical impacts endure. After decades of brutalism and chaos, the fall of Bashar al-Assad regime marks a turning point in Syria's political situation. Rebel fighters declared Damascus liberated in a video statement on state television. After decades of brutalism and chaos, the fall of Bashar al-Assad regime marks a turning point in Syria's political situation.
ظهور أبو محمد الجولاني في قلعة حلب، هذه المدينة الثاني أكبر المدن السورية.
Rebel fighters declared Damascus liberated in a video statement on state television, sending Syrian President Bashar al-Assad fleeing to Russia. On the other hand, Foreign Affairs Minister Nasser Bourita conveyed Morocco's position on the recent since Bashar al-Assad's upheaval, noting that his country hopes the new situation brings stability to Syria. Morocco has been closely monitoring the significant and rapid developments in Syria, Bourita said in a press conference today, recalling Morocco's consistent position supporting Syria's territorial integrity, national sovereignty, and the unity of its people.